Hey, Goddess. Welcome to this episode of our podcast, the first episode of season two. Angie K and I are super excited to be here with you. Before we dive into the topic, which I think everyone is going to love, let me introduce this beautiful goddess. Angie K is a goddess CEO, divine feminine embodiment coach, and master sound activator. She guides spiritual entrepreneurs to grow their gifts and receive soul aligned wealth. She is the author of her newest book, Goddess CEO, and Creation Codes Rise of the Goddess. Goddess CEO just released on June 3rd and is available on Amazon. It is a guide to owning a spiritual business and creating financial freedom like a goddess. I highly recommend both of these books. They are beautiful companions to one another. To see more of Angie K, check out her website. We will link it below. It is angiek.world. I am Wendy Liu. I'm a writer, published author, professional editor, and copywriter, Reiki master, all around energy magician, and a homeschool mom. And I am also republishing a couple of old fun fiction favorites that I will link below, as well as working on my first nonfiction book called Parenting Through Ascension. So that is very exciting. We both have very exciting things going on. So, Angie, let's get into this because I know we talked about this when we were recording our last episode, how it needed to be on our list, and it just came through real strong. And it is an integral part of what you really have been diving into for this latest book, too. So, we thought perfect timing, let's get it out there. We're going to talk about desire and what it really is and where it truly comes from. So, I'm going to let you lead us in.
Okay, thanks for the amazing intro. And I can't wait for Parenting Through Ascension. That's such a powerful topic. Oh my gosh, so many people need that in their hands. So thank you for embarking on
Thank
that for
you.
all of us. Okay, let's talk about desire. Desire is such a, especially for women, and usually I'm speaking to topics that have been either misunderstood for women or there's been a lot of conditioning around them. And so desire is a topic that I end up talking about a lot because so many women have learned to suppress their desire, especially in our culture, in the patriarchal system. It's more known that women will help everyone else with their desire, or they're taught to,
Hmm.
especially older daughters, things like that, right, are meant to help everyone else with whatever it is that they want and need, and then at the sacrifice of their own desires and needs. So this is a topic that comes up a lot because a lot of women will end up, halfway through their life or even in their 30s. I know that was when it was big for me coming up. They can go through their Saturn return, which is age 28, and start
Hmm.
to realize these things. Is it 28 or 29? I can't remember. Don't quote me on it, but it's right around then.
It's around
And
that
then
time, yeah.
yeah, around then, they start to realize they've been living their life for everyone else, for family, for siblings, for it could be spouses or children at that point, not for everyone, but a lot of people will, and men too, right? But this is I speak usually to women about desire,
So
but
yeah,
for
we
men
both do.
too. And it's an integral piece of creating a life that we truly align with and comes from our soul and we want. Because when we try to build, desire is a feminine quality, right? And when we try to build exclusively from the masculine qualities, which a lot of us are taught to do, right? That's thought and action and drive
Right.
and these types of things. A lot of times we'll build things that are not sustainable or don't feed our soul. They're maybe for someone else, or just they come from a place that isn't in alignment with our soul, true soul desires. And so then those are the things that we end up burning down and saying, well, why did that feel like it ever served me? Because it really didn't. It never quite felt right. And so then a lot of times people will not know their desires. And then there's this whole phase that people go through where it's like, I don't even know who I am. I don't know what I want. I know you can relate to
Hmm.
that too,
The
Wendy.
identity
I
crisis,
can't,
right?
yes, then there's a
Mhm.
total identity crisis because you haven't been living from a place where you're allowing the feminine to come first. Now, when you create things in your life that come from the feminine first, they're much more sustainable. They're soul aligned. They're much more likely to succeed because they make sense where
Hmm.
you're coming from as a soul and for your particular soul mission. So when I get into this topic, I always talk about it from the place of manifestation, which because you've heard me talk about this before.
Yeah.
I'll say it gets left out in so many manifestation processes that everything needs to first start with desire. And desire is a very amorphous energy. It's not the same
Mhm.
as thought. Some people will say, but well, manifestation starts with thought. And in a way it does, it clarifies with thought, but it actually starts with desire, which is a feeling.
Mhm.
You can't, it doesn't even have a word yet. It's nameless, right? It's
Right.
a
Right.
feeling of like, we all know what desire feels like. It's a longing. There's a deep desire there. And that comes from soul, right? That comes from
Mhm.
spirit. And you don't know why. And then when it pops into thought, right? Like, oh, wouldn't it be lovely to have whatever the thing is you want to manifest, right? And this is coming from
Right.
soul if it's coming from desire. And then immediately, a lot of times we turn around and shut that thing down if it came from desire, right?
Mhm.
Oh, I could never have that. And here's why. Here's my list of 10 reasons why I can. And so that's why it just goes back down again and starts to get
Right.
buried. It doesn't
Yeah.
go away though. It's an energy that doesn't go away. It wants to manifest through you. And so then you can end up. So that's when what we talked about just a few minutes ago happens, where all of a sudden you have this identity crisis. Who am I? Why do these other things not work for me anymore? So
Mhm.
that's the high level overview, and we can dive in specifically into those
Right.
topics that you're sharing about. But that's why I feel really passionate about it, because I'm that person that went through Saturn return and it just slapped me, you know, across, yeah,
Yes.
felt like halfway across the world, right? It just was like,
Yes.
what
Yeah.
are you doing?
Mhm.
And, I just had to surrender to this journey at that point.
Absolutely,
And it
absolutely.
really took off for me.
And it definitely resonates with me in a big way too, because and we've done entire videos on this about being in more of a masculine energy just to survive and to be able to be out in the workforce in any way. In certain areas, like I was military, you were in corporate, we had to be more masculine to succeed, to move ahead, to not be treated poorly. And of course, for both of us, we still were, because it wasn't a natural state for us to be in such a masculine energy. And so when you're in that state, you can't tune into your own desires at all. You're on autopilot, catering to everyone else in your life and not doing anything for you. And this really too comes around to true self-care, why we suck at it when we first take it seriously and really want to dive into self-care and taking care of ourselves. Because for most of us, I know for me, I had no choice. It was either self-care or I was done. I really was, I was at the end of my rope. And so it speaks to, when you're in a masculine energy, that is not a self-care energy. And this goes for men, women, and other. It doesn't matter what this vessel looks like or how you identify. If you're in a masculine energy all the time, you can't ever truly get into a self-care mindset. So you have to go into the feminine. And like you were saying, I love too the analogy of everything starts with the feminine, including our human lives. Every embryo, every fetus, if you will, every baby starts out as feminine, starts out as female. If that tells you anything, if you don't believe me, look it up. And so we start out as female. Everything comes through the feminine. We are the vessels that bring new souls into the world. Everything begins with feminine energy. And so I think the self-care is really important to bring up too. It's like if you truly want to take care of yourself, which will then release stress and bring more clarity and allow you to tune into more of your own desires, then you have to be in that feminine energy. And we've been repressed, suppressed, denied, belittled, dismissed, right? Whenever we tried to be in our feminine energy. And it was centuries, right? For literally centuries, we've been pushed down. And so very recently, and I just will touch on this real quick, that you think about the feminist movement. It's like it's when we swung the pendulum to the other side, right? And we've talked about this a little bit in other videos too, but it's like, okay, so we experimented. They wouldn't let us have the things we wanted in our feminine because we were so suppressed, and we were allowing it. Just FYI, we have to own our own part in it, right? But so let's try being really masculine and beating them at their own game. And that ends up not being the solution either. We have to find our own balance. And we've talked about this before too. It's like when you generate your birth chart, it'll tell you what your perfect balance is. It's not 50-50. For both Angie and I, well, for me, I know specifically because I've looked it up, it's 70-30, 70% feminine, 30% masculine. And I knew right away when I saw that, that for most of my life, I had been the opposite. I had been operating from so much more masculine. So
Mhm.
tuning in, like, I can't even tell you how much more clarity I have since really cultivating my feminine energy on what my true desires are. And the last, I would say, year especially, but the last 2, 3 years, I've really started listening. So I listen to those desires. I listen to when they become thoughts. And I think the moment, the instant they become thoughts, they're shifted to a little more masculine, right? Because then they're like kind of in there telling us what to do. Oh, you should, pursue this. And so it's even more masculine the second it shifts into thought. So it comes in as this beautiful, soft, oh, I would love. And then the second that thought forms, it's like, oh, now it's masculine. Are you going to act on it or not? Right.
Mhm.
So, and I think that too can kind of intimidate us a little bit. So, like anything, when we shift the pendulum, right? Like a lot of us, for me, I went way feminine for a while, like really super duper feminine, and lost my masculine and lost my ability to actually do something and create something. I was gestating ideas and I was creating things in my womb space. I say in here, but in, within my energy, and then not doing anything with it. And so you find that balance, and then we can, talk about doing the whole manifestation process, which I know because I've had the honor of reading the new book that you talk about extensively in Goddess CEO, of how to give it over to this feminine energy, this raw, real energy, and allow that to bring you the desires that you need to create the legacy, the business, the invention, the whatever you want to create. So, whew, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
had in my head that needed to
Thank
come
you
out.
for that. That was
Yes.
awesome.
Whew.
I do want to say, why did we not mention that you're the editor of Goddess
Oh,
CEO? I feel like that didn't even
oh,
come up until now.
that's
Yeah,
okay.
you have read it extensively. And yeah, that's what it was about. It
6,000
essentially
times.
same,
Yeah.
very similar journey as yours in realizing like I was creating from the masculine right off the bat. I wasn't taking and creating from those deep desires, right? Because they freak people out. And
Right.
that's the thing. It's like because 90% of people are creating just strictly from the masculine, right?
Right.
Not from the deep desire. But of course, we can create. We're creative beings. Like nothing's going to stop that process. And of course, there's feminine energy involved, but it's not the whole thing isn't being guided by the feminine energy, the desire and the
Right.
longing. Then it doesn't stick, right? So
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
then
It
when
fizzles
we
out. It
had yeah,
fizzles
it
out.
fizzles out. It's like, or it doesn't feel fulfilling. And it's like, why doesn't this feel good? This is supposed to feel good. But
Right.
then I went through that big shift into, okay, I'm going to follow desire first. And maybe I
Hmm.
didn't have the words for it yet because I had learned so many masculine, I would call them more masculine focused manifestation techniques that
Right.
focused more on thought versus desire and really tuning into desire and soul desire, right? Being a upgraded version, I feel like even of desire, because we can want certain things, but they don't really come from a deeper place. They can
Right.
be very, very surface level, and then that actually doesn't really fulfill you in the end either. Not that
No,
there's anything wrong with surface level. None of that.
no.
I'm not judging it. I'm just saying at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it still doesn't scratch that itch of that deep
It
fulfillment
doesn't go deep enough.
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
So,
satisfies the ego, right? But the ego is
yeah,
fickle. The
yeah.
ego, wants
Like,
different
eh,
things every other minute. So yeah.
yeah. So then it's like, oh, that isn't satisfying me. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I loved everything you said though. Definitely. And I think there was something that you brought up earlier when we even talked about the topic, and that was selfishness and how when you decide you're going to follow this path, because it's so different typically than what you've been taught or people around you are doing,
Hmm.
it can feel selfish to say, yes, I have this deep soul longing for something, and maybe it doesn't go along with society's box, right? Maybe
Right.
it's outside of the box and it's something you're bringing through that's a new consciousness or whatever that people might not immediately accept right off the bat, right?
Hmm.
And so then there's this feeling of selfishness of like, well, if I follow this, it feels like it's going to upset people, or it's not going to align with my current idea of what reality need my box of reality has to look like, right?
Right.
And so then we
Mhm.
have to go through that whole breakdown in our programming and our paradigm to actually be able to answer the call of the longing. And a lot of times that's the piece that shuts it down right away, that shuts
Mhm.
down the feminine desire from when it becomes a thought. And I love how you talked about that. As you were saying, yes, and that's what it hooks into the masculine, which is what it has to do for manifestation.
Right. Right.
That's the key element is it moves from like an energy, a feeling, an amorphous blob. Someone called it once, and I loved one of my
I
mentors. I'm
love
like,
that.
yes, the feminine is
Love
an
that.
amorphous blob. Thank you.
Why is that beautiful? It's beautiful.
It's so
An
beautiful,
amorphous blob.
right? And then it turns into it turns in it becomes structured by a
Right.
thought, and then that thought is able to hold that energy and contain it, right? That energy for creation, which is the amorphous blob, but it needs something to move through, and thought is
Hmm.
that thought form is a structure. And
Yeah.
so
And
then,
masculine energy is structured.
right,
Absolutely. It's the container.
yes, it is. And Mike
Yeah.
Dooley, we've talked about him before. I think thoughts become things. We love that.
Yes.
It's like, and desires become things too. It's really desire, thought, then becomes things.
Yes.
And the whole phase in between of, releasing any of the programs, conditions, things you've been taught that
In
are
the way,
standing in
right.
the way of you
Hmm.
and that deep soul desire. Because, I mean, let's be real, when we're talking about soul desire, this is a different level of manifestation than, oh, I want I and it can. I'm not saying that a beautiful car cannot come from soul desire. It absolutely can.
I was
But a
just
lot
thinking
of
about that.
times it doesn't, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I really want this. But then you
I
get
would say
it,
the
and then your
type of
whole,
car, the
yeah,
ego may be dictating the type of car, right?
right.
Like, no, do we all need Ferraris or do you know what I mean? That dates
Yeah.
me, I think, but you maybe what you really need is something dependable. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, go on. Yeah, I was right there with you.
Well, and the way you can tell, of course, is, do you feel a deep fulfillment from that? Does it bring you a deep soul satisfaction? Or is it just like for show? Do you end up like 24/7 having to take care of it and feeling resentful of it? Things like that
Hmm.
help you know what's aligned and what's not. Because I remember when I got my most recent car, how soul aligned this car was for me. And it's not, and it's a great car, super reliable. It's a Subaru, but there's something about clicking those stars, and the six stars on the key of the Subaru represent the six stars that you can see of the Pleiades. And there
Hmm.
was something so soul aligned and satisfying about this car. And I know you and Henrietta have a similar thing going on when you
My
got her.
Highlander,
And
yeah.
she's the pearl white too, right? Like
Hmm.
mine's the pearl
Yep.
white. There was something like about this level of our experience. And when we got these cars, I know we both had that same thing. And it's not like
Hmm.
these are cars that people would say, oh, wow, that's a Audi, or that's a, but
Yeah.
it's soul aligned. If there's something about it that is so soul aligned. So there are, of course, physical manifestations that are completely soul aligned for you, and there are ones that are not. And so it can even be as
Hmm.
basic as cars, right? So this is
Exactly.
just really yeah, I feel like it's a higher level type of manifestation is what we're
Yeah.
sharing today. How
Yeah.
you bring the feminine and masculine energies together. And the feminine energy, when it as it relates to manifestation and desire, the feminine energy really is the energetic force behind the manifestation. It gives it its power. It gives the energy that is going to manifest that thing into the world. The energy that it needs to become
It's
of
it's almost
something in physical reality.
exactly. It's like the emotional charge, and everything starts and ends with emotion. Like it has to have the container has to be filled with something, and that's why the masculine, right? Creating something strictly from masculine doesn't work because it's essentially empty. It's just a structure and there's nothing in there. And so yeah, to bring that feminine through the thought structure into the thank you, Mike Dooley, the thoughts become things into actually being a thing is something we really are just tapping into, I feel like recently. Like I think about The Secret, right? And the law of attraction and how we all got so into that. Was it the 90s? Like I think it was with Oprah, thanks to Oprah, The Secret became big and it's missing some things, right? Like it was
Hmm.
missing like it wanted you to focus on specific things, like you were saying, the car, and that's great, and people were manifesting that way. But again, it wasn't soul aligned, and so for a lot of people, it ended up being a project, or it ended up being a lemon, or it ended up being something, negative, because what the secret missed is you're not focusing on the thing, you're focusing on how you want the thing to make you feel. You're focusing on the energy, you're focusing on the emotional charge, you're focusing on the feminine, essentially. And so when you pare it down to make a vision board of all the things you want, and it's always car, house, that's great, like you said, that's great, and you'll manifest, possibly, but it's not opening you up all the way to let the universe bring in what really is aligned. Like maybe you really do need an SUV, but you're wanting the little two-seater sports car. You manifest the sports car, and then your family grows, and then you end up not being able to use the sports car at all, right? The universe was trying to bring you an expedition, or you know what I mean? The universe was trying to bring you a wagon, and you were not
Right.
letting it, and you weren't letting it come in. And so I think that's where we have grown and evolved and expanded our consciousness and our thinking, in that now we are realizing that it's not about manifesting the material things. It's about creating the life that feeds our soul, and creating the life that we are excited to wake up to every day, instead of just like, sure, a little two-seater sports car would be great, but maybe what the universe brings to me is going to last longer and going to be better for my family, and just be more of a peace of mind part of my life, versus, right, like something not to worry about, versus, oh well, the sports car broke down again and I need to, because it's foreign, so now we got to wait 6 months for the parts, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I think I mean, just I'm loving kind of digging into this. Everything begins with the feminine, because it's really resonating with me on a deep level. And just being in a place where I'm at right now, like moving through menopause, where the feminine energy is really kind of gets tested, because
Mhm.
it forces you to balance. It forces you. I feel like menopause is a stage where it's like, okay, you've been screwing around for for 45, 50 years. Time to get serious. If you want another very productive, happy, abundant, joyful 45 to 50 years, then this is what you have to do. And you have to listen to your body and do what, your body needs. So it's shifted the not only the way I manifest, but the things that I want to manifest. Huge for me.
Yeah. So, but I love what you were saying about that. And it's like it almost reminded me of like a reckoning of,
Oh,
those,
Bills.
did you? Like
Mhm.
or like you said, the earlier choices you made, or parts of your life or whatever. And it's like, what I saw was like a convergence point is what it looked like to me. And it was like the energy converging of like pure soul alignment. So everything that's being created is coming from the feminine, from the desire, from the deep soul alignment. And there's no longer any need or urge or um, feeling of should, I guess, comes to me to
Yes,
create from a place that isn't in alignment with that. There would be absolutely no reason. It would just waste your feminine energy, is what I'm getting. And at
right.
that point in your life, you're so defined in that it's like, why would you waste energy on
Yes.
anything that wasn't soul aligned? And you
And the
just
term unapologetic comes to mind. I believe that when we go through menopause, that we become unapologetic, unabashedly, unashamed goddesses in our own, like that's what we really
Mhm.
are being asked to do. And for a lot of us, it's a shift too, from out of the mother archetype into the crone, which I am on a mission to bring that word back. It should never have been treated like a shriveled up old witchy lady. It literally means crown, and it should be a beautiful word. And so I want to bring that word back as a beautiful, container for us to shift from taking care of everybody else to shifting into taking care of us first, and really stepping into our potential as divine feminines.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're bringing it back. We're bringing back
Oh
the
my
word.
gosh,
I
are
mean,
we
and that's the
ever?
thing about words. And you and I have always said this, since years ago, for like the past decade. There's nothing inherently bad about any certain words at all. It's just that
Right.
we've attached negative energies or thought forms to certain words. And so if we can just take a word and neutralize it, I mean, you can just ask, I'm going to neutralize the energy of this word, right? Then
I
it's
love
just
that.
become, yeah, and then it retains its original meaning, I feel like,
Right.
which was crown. And that's
Right.
beautiful.
And I've
Yeah.
used the word so much now that it is much less like when I first started using it, I was definitely hesitant because I would feel people like cringe when I'd say it, that I was a crone or that I was coming into my crone energy. And now that I've just become unapologetic in using it and describing myself that way, it's got much less of that energy attached to it for me. So I love that. Yeah, I want to neutralize it right now. Let's neutralize it for everybody listening.
Okay, let's do it.
Yes.
Wave your magic wand. Poof, we did it.
Oh, done. All done.
Done, done, done. One thing that you and I talked about earlier when we were just sort of like fleshing out this topic, is that a lot of people just, and maybe this is what we could leave people with on this podcast, is knowing how to be in the feminine, because a lot of people just don't know how to make that happen. They've been taught that there's a certain path that you take, and it's very action oriented, our world, right? Like you take these actions, and that is the only way. But what we're trying to tell you is the faster and easier way to create a great life, and one that is very fulfilling and that you love, is actually to start with the feminine and start with the desire, because
Yeah.
this is going to put you on the path that you actually created before you came into this life, which is going to bring you the greatest joy and fulfillment than the one that you came in and then other people were like, well, this is your path, right? And then you end up on that path
Right.
with you're like, this is the one, especially
Hmm.
society and all the expectations for women in our world. And like you brought up feminism and stuff. And thank
Hmm.
you, feminists, for that awesomeness that you brought in. And now
Clarity.
we're taking
Yeah,
it to another level, which is the
absolutely.
goddess level. We'll just call it the goddess
There
level,
you
right?
go. I love it.
So many people don't know how to get to this place of being in their feminine and creating from that place. I think we should give them some tips on how we've both done it in our own ways.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how have you, like, what do you feel like the biggest way has been for you to shift
Well,
that?
I think definitely I was, in a lot of ways, and I think a lot of people had this experience, is I was I was given really very little choice when I had my initial, we call it awakening, right? Initial awakening, where I really just came to realize that I was not living the life that I wanted to live. And it was overwhelming for a while. And so I hope, I don't wish that experience on anybody. I hope that most people have had a more gentle, transition into this awakening. But I think for me, it started with simple things like, I never wore makeup. I hardly ever wore jewelry. I didn't really ever like dress up. And so I started to transform the way I presented myself. And that may seem, surface level, but for me, it made me feel more like a woman. And having four sons and having been raised with two brothers, I have two sisters later when I was older, but been raised with two brothers playing baseball and climbing trees. I was a tomboy. I had been in such masculine energy my whole life. And so when that was pulled out from under me, I didn't know how to be feminine. I had no idea. And so I started with the simple things. I started to buy some jewelry. I started to buy when I did need clothes. I didn't go crazy, right? I didn't go hog wild, but when I did need clothes, I was buying prettier clothes. And like we do for a while, I was kind of going way over to like the super lacy, frilly, not really my style. I think now I'm really finding kind of my gypsy boho style that really suits me and fits my personality and is who I want to present to the world. But I will dress like this even when I'm not leaving my apartment. So I'll do this. I'll even put makeup on sometimes because it helps me tune into that femininity. And again, if it seems surface level to you or materialistic, then perhaps that energy behind how you're perceiving it is what needs to be looked at, right? It's like there is nothing wrong with wanting to look beautiful. There's nothing wrong with wanting pretty clothes and wanting to look nice. I think for me, that was a huge shift because I definitely was not presenting myself in a very feminine way. And I wanted to, but I didn't know how. And because someone who also, like my mother, for example, God love her, was a teeny little petite thing, very feminine and always dressed to the nines, always full face of makeup, always, curled her hair and everything. And I think in a way I was resisting that because we had some challenges in our relationship. And so I resisted her and who she was for a long time. But now that and so gosh, some of the big things, I mean, like I talked about earlier, it's like self-care. When you're really tuning into that feminine, And go buy the fancy bath salts, go buy some essential oils, buy actual rose petals. Like, do something that makes you feel like a woman when you're getting in the tub instead of just taking a hot bath, right? Like, really do it up. And I feel like that can get you into that energy that just you can build upon that. And so the big things for me now are just really, instead of making time for myself, all my time is mine and other people can come in and share it, but all my time is mine now. What are
Yeah.
some of the things that work for you?
Yeah, I love the ones that you shared. That's great. I feel like I was pretty girly as far as most things. Like I've never been like a big nail girl, like with, acrylic nails or anything. But that's kind of just the one thing. Like I've always liked getting my hair highlighted and
Hmm.
just being sort of girly. And so I was kind of on that trajectory of feminine expression. But I feel like it had to shift for me because some of that did come more from a place of not maybe the most aligned feminine, right? And so I've definitely shifted that a lot, but also I had kind of a mom vibe that was sort of just very basic a lot of times what you're describing and then I don't think there was anything wrong with it. It was just, a lot of times as moms, the focus is on our kids. And so there wasn't a big
Right.
focus on my own self-care a lot of times, even though I probably wanted to focus on it, I just didn't. And I didn't a lot of times focus on my appearance like I would have wanted to. So yeah,
Right.
I feel like there was a big shift in that for me and just aligning more with that goddess essence and just wanting to like buy fabrics that felt goddessy or
Mhm.
flowy, pretty dresses, sparkly things. I mean, and it's not all about the things. Of course, like connecting to the
No.
desire is a completely different experience, but to sort of like get myself in that feminine energy and then allowing myself to dance and listen to music and just be more in that sensual space, right? And like you said, essential oils are great for that. Just
Mhm.
the sense of smelling and experiencing the essential oils. But for me, I think the biggest thing was because I was in such a masculine structure corporate environment when I finally just said, I am surrendering to this calling that makes absolutely no sense for me. The first thing I had to do was find out that I was safe doing it. And I think that's for so
There
many
you
people is
go.
there's a
Yeah.
safety piece in can I trust the feminine? Can I trust this longing? Can I trust this desire? And it feels like jumping off a cliff when you do it. And I had to just, and I tried everything for 2 years to not leave my corporate job, but also have my coaching business going and my hand analysis business at the time. But I just came to a place where I had to just totally jump into the arms of the feminine, basically. And I just left. And it was very little warning or notice from my managers. And I
Hmm.
had sort of built up the position from where it originally started into something that it was much bit larger than where I had started. And I didn't give them a lot of warning that I was going. And I just walked in one day and it was just like everything in me was like surrender finally to the feminine. And so this was my kind of like moment of reckoning, like we were talking about
Right. That's a
earlier,
big
where
one.
I just said I'm leaving. And that was the first time I trusted the feminine. And then after that, I remember for a few months just wanting to be in nature, just everything feminine with Mama Gaia and anything that was like close to the earth and just
Hmm.
felt really good and that where I felt really held by that divine mother, divine feminine energy. So that was what it was for me, but it's different for everything. But safety is a big one. So,
I'm
but
glad
you
that came up because that is
baby
huge.
steps. Yeah, you can
Right.
take baby
Right.
steps in safety. You don't, Wendy always says there's baby steps are allowed on the journey. I tend to take
Yes.
big,
Yes.
drastic, almost like grand gesture type steps. It's just sort of my nature. I think I'm a risk taker and
Hmm.
I'm sure my soul gets some sort of thrill out of that experience of just like jumping into the unknown. But everyone doesn't have to do that. And I tell my clients that too. Like, do things that give you the lived experience of feeling safe in the feminine. So if
Hmm.
the lived experience is I'm going to walk outside wearing a totally hot, sexy red dress and just own the
To
look
go
of
to the
that dress for
grocery
a
store.
day.
Yeah,
Right,
and I'm just doing it.
whatever it is for you that comes to you is like, what's the most feminine thing I can think of to do right now that just really is something that comes from my desires. Do it and see that you were safe, right? Nothing happened to you when you wore that red
Nothing bad
dress.
happened.
And I mean, besides for maybe you got some looks from people that thought it was really beautiful, and you could tell that they did. And then know that you were safe and then build from there. What's the next thing you could do to feel
Right.
safe? Can you
That the
choose
important
a
thing is to
desire
build.
that's, yeah, choose a desire that's low risk. Like, we've talked about this before, like choosing the movie you want to go to. That I think we talked about that in the last
Yeah,
video, and
we
that's how this
did.
came up. Say yeah when someone asks you to go to dinner or a movie, actually say the place you want to go versus I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know,
If
where do
they
you want to
ask,
go?
be that
Yeah,
person who
be
actually
it.
responds and they'll get used to that, right? And then maybe if
Yeah,
they do want to pick, they won't ask you, right?
right.
But they'll know you're that kind of person that, oh my gosh, they actually chose. Because who does that? Women just, we stopped doing that. But I love that trust came through. We hadn't really touched on that yet. It's so
Mhm.
important. And that is a baby, that is a process, right? But a lot of people are going to be like you and dive into, and that's beautiful as well. It's like everybody has their own way of doing it, but we have to really truly find a way to feel safe. And for a lot of us, that meant and is still means bringing our own masculine through to be that safe place. If
Mhm.
because we can't rely on anything external. Everything is in here. It's an inside job, right? This whole ascension is an inside job. And until you can provide that masculine structure for yourself to feel safe in the feminine and to allow desires to start coming through again, then you will find yourself kind of stuck in a place. You maybe move a little bit and then you'll feel stuck and move a little bit and feel stuck. And so really open up to that and allow that masculine to provide that safety, right? And then, we all, I think for a lot of people, we want that partner. If you're the feminine, you want that masculine partner. Not speaking gender, right? Just energy, but you want that masculine partner who can provide that as well. But you have to tap into it within yourself first.
Yeah,
Find the safety, whatever feels safe but feminine. That's where you go.
yeah.
And I think it's
Or
super
unsafe.
important.
It might feel unsafe
Right.
actually, but
Well, that's
you will
true.
prove to yourself that you
Start.
were safe. You will prove to yourself that you lived
Right.
through it.
Take the risk. Take the risk and realize that you were safe all along.
Yes,
Absolutely. And those
I love
desires are
it.
going to come flooding in as they are for Angie and I. 2025 has been full of desires turning into thoughts, turning into things.
I love that.
And
That's
it's
a
been
really
awesome.
good way of saying it. Yeah. Well, yep, I think we covered it well. I
I
think
think that's
that's a good place to wrap it.
what a
And
beautiful
if
topic. Yes.
Yes, I love this topic. I just do want to say that if anyone out there would love a community that supports you really tuning in and understanding your desires, the Goddess Society is a really great place to have support around following your soul desires because it is something that is so different than what the rest of the world is doing. And that is a big piece of what we do in Goddess
And
Society.
that is an example of a big thing you can do to tune into your feminine energy, is joining
Yes.
a group of other women on the same journey.
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
We're going to wrap this one up, and we hope that you all enjoyed this one. Please comment on whatever platform you can. What are all the words? Like, share, follow, download, subscribe, wherever you're watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, I will try to put the links for. We are also on Amazon, iTunes,
Yep.
and Spotify.
We are.
And so
Yep.
this podcast is out there wherever you whatever your favorite platform is. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode around desire, and we hope to see you next time. Bye, goddess.
Bye, Goddess.